Trump just announced plans to build a walkway connecting the Lincoln Memorial to the Potomac River. And this would be his latest project around D.C., one of several. So joining us now live to talk all about this is Joe Himmeley. He's a longtime local realtor. He's built a massive social media following, teaching all of us about the architectural history of the DMV. You know him from Best Address. Joe, great to speak with you again.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us. And first, let's talk about this. What are you hearing about this promenade? This would be, I'm reading, a walkway, maybe a bridge of sorts?
Yeah, it appears that the intention is to build a bridge across the two roads that are on the back of the Lincoln Memorial as it's built today.
Very interesting. Now, I have to ask you, you are the historical expert. Was this part of the original plan for the Lincoln Memorial, or is this a modern idea and a purely modern addition?
Well, that's a great question. So as you can see behind me, I have a library, and I actually happen to have the actual McMillan plan from 1901. This was published in 1902, and this is an original copy. So I pulled it off the shelf, and I took a look at it, and the references back to the Lincoln Memorial itself are only 2 pages long. And when you read through it, you discover that, as is with most of the McMillan plan, things changed as time went on. So what is built today is a sort of semblance of what the original plan was. Now, in particular for the Lincoln Memorial, the plan was to have it be a portico that went all the way through, so you could literally see from the east to the west. But what they ended up building is not what was in the original McMillan plan. So the original plan was to have it be able to face both east and west. But because they built the wall across the back of Lincoln sitting on the chair, there is no view to the west. And that is why, if you go to the memorial, you'll see that the west side is basically plain. If they end up building the promenade as planned, you would be walking up to a solid stone wall. Not at all what was intended with the McMillan plan, and therefore the reference back to the original McMillan plan just doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Wow, that is absolutely fascinating. And hearing you describe that, and we were showing some video of the memorial there, I kind of wish that wall behind Lincoln was not there. That truly would be spectacular, more like Jefferson, the experience when you go there to see the light through there. Historically, Joe, who shapes these grounds through time? Who has kind of shaped some of these changes with the Lincoln Memorial?
Well, nowadays, what's really going on is you have to go through the U.S. Park System, the National Capital the National Capital Planning Commission, and the U.S. Commission of Fine Arts. Those sort of the 3 institutions you have to go through, and they are supposed to be independent organizations that can look at things with a more historic confidence. You don't really want to have somebody looking at just the short term. You are looking at a plan that will last another 100 years. And so the question is not whether or not we need a promenade now, it's whether or not we should have one 100 years from now. And you really want to have people that are not thinking short term, but rather long term. So the answer to your question is, today, those are the approval processes that you would go through. And over time, those are the organizations that have made approvals in the past as well.
Joe, thank you. And it was so cool to just see you hold up the book there and say, I actually looked at the original plans here in the documents, the original purpose of this space. What was it? What were, and I guess what are we still meant to experience when we take a visit to the Lincoln Memorial and approach?
Well, I think it's really to have that sense of awe and wonder about our nation. It is the nation's mall. It's not a mall for the District of Columbia. It's not a monument to any particular president. It's a monument to the entire nation. And so you are supposed to go there and experience a sense of wonder. And when you go there, you'll notice that this is a place where we have the memorials to the great achievements and the great losses in our nation. So you see things like the Washington Monument, you see things like the Vietnam Memorial, a lot of places there. It's a somber place. It's still joyful, but many of the places along the mall are supposed to be somber and reflective, as well as educational, where you see things like the Smithsonian Institution that are along there. And of course, it shows where the Congress is with the Capitol building and the White House just off on the other side. And of course, the monument is the sort of center access of the National Mall. And this is really a place that's supposed to be for the entire country, not just to represent a single plan, including Lincoln. It is not just the Lincoln Mall. It's not just the Washington Monument. It's the entire nation.
And Joe, as someone who teaches people about these historic sites, all over the DMV, and especially when it comes to the Lincoln Memorial, a place that has been the site itself of so many historic moments on top of its own history. What is the biggest element you hope is considered in any of these projects that we've been talking about as of late?
Well, I think the most important thing is to have a long-term view. I don't want the National Mall to end up being a random collection of various things that were added one at a time without thought about the long-term consequence of what's going on. And that was part of the entire McMillan plan at the time. A lot of people don't know that there was actually a railroad track running through the National Mall before the McMillan plan. So there were railroad tracks, there were temporary buildings built there during World War II. There have been lots of things built in the National Mall over time. But what we want to do is if there's something that's added, it's thought through carefully with a long-term point of view. And that's what I hope is done.
Wow, so much history, layers and layers. Realtor, social media historian, and icon of best address, Joe Himmeley. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to join us live.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Always so interesting to talk with you. And stay with us. We will be right back after this quick break.